get back up when we fall. We'll try again.
So, welcome to the podcast, Emily.
Thank you.
I had to stop us there for a moment because we were just about to get into, I was going to basically, I guess, fangirl all over you being out there in the middle of freaking winter.
Yeah. It was a good time. Maybe it wasn't a good time and I just remember the good parts only. I don't know.
I think that seems to happen for most people out on the trail.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit of the pregnancy brain, maybe. I don't know.
It's what gets people out there over and over again.
I know, truly, actually. I think so.
How, I know this is sort of like the elephant in the room, but I just think of myself when I'm in really freaking cold weather and I'm freezing, like my hands, everything is freezing. And yet I'm sitting there. I was literally watching, I was glued, honestly, to your Instagram stories as you would post. And I'm sitting there watching you with your bare hands and all of that. And I'm just like, how is she doing that? Like,
Yeah.
how?
Well, there were repercussions.
Oh, okay.
There are definitely repercussions for me doing that. But, whatever. It's worth it. I would do my best not to keep my bare hands out. That's a lesson I think that, everybody knows. I mean, if you live somewhere cold, right? Like your parents would generally like bundle you up pretty much. So I grew up in the 90s, right? It's like your parents would bundle you up and then like kick you out to the bus stop, no matter what the weather was. They're like, well, the bus will be there soonish, right? And they'd be like, get out of us.
Yeah.
So, you never want to really have your hands completely out, but like with phones and stuff, you can't like really do much. Like just like the dexterity is not there with gloves and stuff. So that was that. But yeah, I try to not let my hands be bare. But my fingertips are still pretty numb. And now I have the case where like when it gets cold outside, my body refuses to send blood to like my index and my middle finger on my right hand. So they just kind of turn white. And I'm just like, all right, well, I guess we don't need those fingers for the rest of the day, So, and my toes are still a little numb, but they're coming back. It'll be summer soon enough. And hopefully the blood vessels will heal and open up again. That's my hope. But yeah.
So it sounds like the hike was not without its casualties.
All right. Yeah. But like what good is a backpacking trip without something, right? You know what
True.
I mean? Who if people are going out there and they're like, yeah, I went in the backcountry and it was perfect and nothing bad happened. Like that's dumb. Then you probably didn't do anything. You probably helicoptered in and then helicoptered out every night and got to stay in a bougie hotel.
Did you really have a backpacking adventure?
Right. Right. So it's all right.
Well, I guess to introduce everybody to what you did, if they had not been following along, you basically just completed the Ice Age Trail, which seemed very appropriate for this time of year.
Yes, I guess. Well, like when you don't have, so what I do for profession is I'm a professional gardener here in Duluth. And like our season is not very long, right? Mm-hmm. So June is when you can really start kicking out things. And then like even sometimes before November, like sometimes by October, I have stuff wrapped up. So like we just have that very small window and like you're just going gangbusters all day long. So there's really not time for me to step away from the garden and like go on a substantial backpacking trip. So winter it is.
Is that kind of where this started?
Yeah, like that's how this trip got started was like, and the trip when I did the Superior Hiking Trail, I like stepped away from work, but it was in the fall and I had some really rockin' employees at the time who had been there for a while and they could kind of take over. But this got started because I was looking for, 1,000 miles or more to do in the winter time because I have that time off. And I was like, I finally want to get 1,000 miles under my belt, kind of like, it's not like the Gateway, right? I'd say like the Gateway would be like a 3-part weekend, right? That's like the Gateway, like long enough out there. I feel like the 1,000 miles is like the gateway to like, I don't know. I want to say like 10,000 miles, but it's a bit absurd. Maybe like 5,000 miles. I don't know. Something ridiculous.
Do you have a desire to hike the longer trails at this point? Or is it just sort of dependent upon your work?
I mean, I would love to, right? So like as soon as I got off of the Ice Age Trail, the Appalachian was just getting started.
Mm-hmm.
I think people left like maybe the second week in March to get started on the Appalachian, and I was like, man, if I could only just do that. But yeah, it's really going to depend on work and who I have working for me, and can they take over? Can I sneak away? Because now we're talking 4, 5, 6 months, right?
Yeah.
We're not just talking a quick little like 2.5 monther,
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, I would love to. But I think my niche might be like, I've been thinking about this, like maybe I'll just like do some like unsung hero trails instead of like trying to get, all these crazy trails in. Because I feel like there's a bunch of really cool trails out there that just like aren't the Starbucks, right, of the
True.
hiking world.
Yeah.
And
if you do more winter trails, you can certainly have your pick, basically.
Yes, pretty much.
You can be the first of everything.
Yeah, I suppose. I like going after somebody, just because like Mike Summers did the trail before I did, so like he survived, and if he survived, I was like, I can do it too, it's fine.
Were you able to pick his brain?
No, I could not find him. So allegedly he's changed his somebody got a hold of him, and I had a different interview. He told me he like really has changed his whole lifestyle and kind of has hopped off the trail and is choosing a bit quieter of a life, which is really cool. Which is the reason why I couldn't find him anywhere. I saw one blog from him, and that was after he completed the trail, and then poof, he disappeared. I was really bummed because I was like, who else are you going to ask questions to, right?
Yeah.
Except for the guy that like did it before you,
And there's probably, with any through hike, there's a lot of questions to ask, but particularly one like this, where there's a lot of things that could go wrong, and there's a lot of uniqueness to this endeavor.
Right. Yes. Lots of room for error.
Yes.
Well, maybe not error.
Or little room for error.
So, well, yes. Little room for error, but lots of opportunities for error, maybe we'll say. And our winters here are so unpredictable because they really vary from year to year. Mm-hmm. Last year around here, we got like 2 feet of snow before Thanksgiving, all in one push, between 2 and 3 feet of snow, plus snow drifts. So or it was windy, so we got a bunch of snow drifts. So, and this year we didn't get anything like that. We maybe got like a foot of snow, but in Minnesota, that's not that big of a deal. We have a really great plow system. So, but then this year it wasn't anything. It was potatoes, So you never know. Some winters, the polar vortex, comes for 3 days, and sometimes the polar vortex comes for 3 weeks. And this year it was 2.5 weeks.
So I take it you didn't get hit. Were you still on the trail by that massive storm that hit Texas and all of that?
Well, so Wisconsin did get that storm, but it's
not
a couple
unusual.
Things. Right. So for Texas, that's a big deal. If that were to happen to us, we'd be like, huh, okay. Like, when we get like iced over power lines, in Minnesota especially, things really start to kick down when we get iced over power lines. So that's the biggest deal, when it rains and then snows. But yeah, when that happened, when I was in Wisconsin, I think maybe they had gotten 8 inches of snow plus some wind.
Okay. So not anything spectacular even.
It was beautiful, I guess.
Yeah. Well, there is something to be said about being out there. Like, you're so alone that it's so quiet. There's just the crunch of the snow, and there's the sun on the snow. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And you realize, this is so funny because people are always like, isn't it just so quiet out there? And I'm like, gosh darn it, nature is so loud. Like, I tell you, like, if it's not the snow crunching underneath your feet, if you're hiking out of the season, it's the leaves under your feet. At nighttime, you're going to bed. Guess who's waking up? The owls, the coyotes, the mice, the wolves. Like, everybody else is waking up at that time. The foxes are out sniffing around. Like, you're the only thing going to bed out in nature. You and the deer, maybe. Everything else is waking up and pepping to go hunt. So, yeah, I'm just like, nature is stinking loud. It's just not like, you know, the freeways loud.
It was a different kind of noise.
Yeah. And I love it because then everybody does go to sleep, you know. I don't know if nothing's really awake after, you know, 3 a.m. and then they switch over to the morning animals, but I love it. It's fun. It's a whole different rhythm, you know.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
No lights, you know, just the moon, whatever, kind of dictating how you feel. I like that.
And I would think, not that you would want to be out there in the middle of the night because it is freaking cold, but I can only imagine what it must look like out there because it's probably pretty clear. So you've got all of the stars out there, the Milky Way, like everything.
Yeah. Well, there would be some nights where we just, you know, hike until we pretty much dropped. So it'd be like hiking in the nighttime, because Diggins was really good at finding the trail even at nighttime, which was super awesome. I mean, we had blazes to look at too, but it would help me, you know, not have to focus so hard on where the blazes were. And yeah, it was awesome. There's just nothing like hiking at nighttime. I love it so much because you don't realize how not dark it is, right?
Yeah.
So if you're anywhere in the lunar cycle where the moon is at half or more, it's pretty stinking bright if it's not cloudy outside. And then it reflects off the snow. So it's just like, wow, someone just put you in a light box. And it's awesome.
You just need your photographer out there taking pictures.
Yes, that's right.
Speaking of Diggins, how did you end up choosing her as your trail companion as opposed to a different dog or even one of the sled dogs that the farm had?
Right. Well, Sherry was the only one to respond to my Facebook post.
Okay.
So that really limited it, probably from like 1 million dogs to 20 dogs. And she had just gotten Diggins. And her girls, her Sherry's kids are the ones who race. Since COVID was around, there weren't so many races. And so they weren't really going to train with Diggins as much. So she was like, if you want, you know, she was 2 years, you know, she was a 2-year-old, you know, almost 3-year-old when I got her. Very spry and whatever. And she's a lead dog. That also helps because she'll listen a little bit better, and knows her lefts and her rights and so on and so forth. And then we met and it was just like love at first sight. It was like it could have been a slow motion. I don't know. It was, it was awesome. Like she came into my lap and like showed me her belly right away. So I scratched her belly and then it was done. That was it. Yeah. You know, Sherry had other dogs for me to choose from. So maybe more of like retired dogs that were out, you know, they retire not at an old age, at a medium-ish age. But I'm glad I took a really young one, even though we weren't pulling, you know, she wasn't pulling a sled, you know, for these many miles all day long. You know, walking maybe is seemingly not a very not a very like tough sport, I guess. But when you're doing it through the deep snow, it will wear, you know, it wears on your body. So I'm glad I got a young dog.
Yeah, because she was breaking trail for you as well to some extent.
Yes. I tried to have her come behind me and she would hate it. She would walk so close to my heels, I would end up kicking her in the head. And she just like wouldn't care that I was kicking her in the head. And she would just wait for me to let her pass. And I was just like, okay, whatever, fine. You go ahead. And sometimes the snow would be like up to her shoulders, you know, and she would just keep plowing through. It was ridiculous. She's a monster. She's not very big. She weighs about 45 pounds. She's real small, but she's a monster. Ridiculous. Yeah. It was really cool because I was like, so she's named after Jessie Diggins, which is she's a cross-country ski animal from Minnesota. And it, like, the name Diggins was so fitting for my Diggins because she was just like, she's a monster that could just go forever. Happily.
She's husky, right?
She's Alaskan. Yep.
Yeah. So she was built for that, so to speak.
Yes. Right.
And I guess that's what you also get when you get a lead dog. Like she wants to be out in front and and pull the team.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? I've only worked with a handful of sled dogs, but I know that when some sled dogs get sick of doing what they're doing, they will just stop. And she rarely, I don't know if she ever really stopped and like didn't want to go. And that was really cool. it really made it a lot easier on me mentally to make, to know that she wasn't in that much stress.
Right. That if she wasn't enjoying it, she would have let you know.
Oh, she would have let me know. Oh, yes. She would have had no problem letting me know.
I love that you guys have a language, so to speak, between you.
Yes.
After
many days, 69 days together.
69 days.
And like, not just like days, like all day, 69, 24 hours together is what I would maybe be better to put it as. Like, think of COVID, right? Like, I don't know if you live with somebody, but like, that was like the ultimate lockdown, right? Like, not only are we together, but we are tied together. Like, think of being tied to the person that you live with like physically by a 10-foot line every single day of your life.
Yeah. It's a version of a small apartment that just travels with you.
Yes. And you have to set it up every single night. That's pretty much right.
How many days did you actually end up sleeping outside versus finding someplace to stay?
I still have not done the math, which I'm 2 weeks out from my trip and I should have done the math by now, but I still haven't. I wish I would have stayed out more than I did. But again, we're 2 weeks post and I'm seeing it with rosy colored glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And any night that I stayed inside, I had very delicate reasons as to why I would stay inside. So I don't know.
Yeah, I saw. You had a picture of a thermometer that was like in the not even zero, but below zero, in the negative Fahrenheit.
Yes. And that thermometer lied to me all the time. It was a cheeky liar. I think it was off by like 7 to 10 degrees warmer. So it would tell me that it was -10 out and it was actually -20. Cheeky. But it was only $4. So I mean, really, what can I say? I think the plastic shifted inside of it. So that's fine.
Right. But when you're talking those type of temperatures, I mean, I know, because I kind of looked at or listened to your videos and whatever about your setup to go out there. But even as good as that setup was, like there's a limit to what it can do for you.
Oh, absolutely. And there's definitely, so here's the other thing. So like a lot of people are like, oh, what's one of the things that you learned the most from this trip, right? And one of the biggest things is to like just let my ego like kick it out the window, right? Because at the end of the day, like I'm a very smart, capable, brave woman, right? So those things I know, but that doesn't mean I have to let my ego make me stupid and like make poor choices and make me feel like I need to be the Hulk, right? So so my bag is -30, but at -30 is like when you are in survival mode and you feel that -30. And that means also I have a dog sleeping out in a -30 and the wind chill was in the -40s, 50s. So it's not like, whatever, it's kind of in those situations. So there's definitely is a limit, but there's also a limited space in my bag, right? I'm sure I could have paid more money for like a -50 bag. I don't think I had the money at the time, so I didn't.
So imagine how much that would cost.
Right. Like there's definitely way better gear out there. There's different setups and stuff like that. But knowing your limits, and also I had an inkling, that this trail, I saw that it went through so many towns. So, if I was in trouble, I could at least knock on someone's door and say, hey, can I stay in your garage? Or, even staying next to a building is warmer than staying out in the middle of the forest. So,
yeah,
that's that.
Well, and because I know a lot of people would probably say, well, did Diggins sleep with you?
No, she did not. Only she slept in the tent, but not in my sleeping bag. She was wet all of the time because she would roll in the snow. She would sweat. She would sleep she curls up in the snow. I do not need a wet dog in my sleeping bag. If it were dire circumstances, because I'm sure there's lots of dog lovers that listen to your podcast. If it's dire circumstances, right? And for some reason I didn't catch hold of the weather and it got too cold, absolutely, I'm not going to let a dog freeze out, in whatever weather. But I'm not going to let her sleep with me every single night. No way, man. Yeah. She's a husky. Come on.
Well, and that was I was looking at, like, you had a number of pictures of your, like, when you were setting up camp and stuff like that. And, uh, you're setting up camp and that kind of thing. And she's kind of curled up on the snow. And I'm
Yes.
just like, she's built for it.
Yes.
It's crazy impressive.
Well, and so her body temperature is so high that when I would remove the tent, when there was just, because I kicked the snow away, there would be a brown spot in the earth because she melted all the snow away at nighttime because she's just so warm.
So that is their secret recipe, is that their body heat is just that much higher.
There must be, and in the way that the layers of their fur, insulate their bodies. It's crazy. And so I've been out dog sledding with a company called Wintergreen in the Boundary Waters here in Minnesota. You can't tell that I'm pointing north. Right over there.
I was like,
just over there. And every time we wake up in the morning, all the dogs would just have these brown spots in the ground because they just melted all the snow underneath it. And we wouldn't kick the snow away from them. They would just melt it all down at nighttime. They're amazing. Huskies are phenomenal dogs.
yeah.
I would not buy it as a house dog. I would not buy a husky as a house dog ever. But they're great working animals.
Yeah. And she was a good companion for you out there.
Yes. Oh man. Oh yeah. She was. I've been referring to her as my Wilson. If you remember Castaway.
Yeah.
The film Castaway. Oh yeah. She was definitely my Wilson. She got to hear all of my commentary. I wish just wouldn't even care that I looked like a crazy woman talking. I would just talk to her all day long. I didn't even care. Whatever.
What pushed you out there? What made you decide to do it, other than this was the time in your schedule that you had?
Not much else. Like literally, like I just like backpacking. Like I don't know. I know, like I know people, like I've gotten the feeling that people like want this grandiose answer, but like literally, I just like backpacking. There's a rhythm to the lifestyle on the trail. And it's nice. And then it conspired into this, that may not be, it became this thing after the decision had already been made. It didn't become Emily on Trail until, later down the line, it, really, truly.
What was it originally going to be? Just you doing the trail with Diggins and enjoying the experience, and then.
Well, yeah, and I made the Instagram mostly because to just keep pictures for myself and just have the memories, and like, I knew it would link to my Facebook account, and that's that. And so my family could keep up on it, my partner. And there's a bunch of people I know that don't use Facebook anymore, and they only use Instagram, that I knew would want to follow along. So I was like, cool, we'll do this. And that was that. And then it exploded. And I didn't realize it was exploding until, I don't think it really hit me until after I got home. Because also before I left, like, I did start the mantra of like, I believe that anybody should be able to be outside, right? Anybody should feel comfortable outside, and you all deserve to be outside. So that mantra started before I left, but like, whatever, right? We've all, encouraged people, with just a couple hundred followers, and like, because you want to be encouraging, it's not like there's no recipe to what happened. It's a chocolate chip cookie happenstance. They were made by mistake, and they were fantastic. That's that.
Yeah, because it was interesting. I mean, because you were posting, it's mostly in your stories, which have kind of disappeared for the purposes of.
I have re-uploaded them.
Oh, okay.
So the stories will live on forever.
Perfect. Because really your journey is told through the stories, and there would be a lot of stories every day,
Yes.
of the ongoing adventure that was, Ice Age Trail in winter.
Yeah. Yes. I also did not know that woohoo was going to become my tagline. And it definitely did. Some mornings I wake up and I'm like, man, maybe I should just do a video just for kicks and giggles. just because it's just funny. You have no idea how many people have messaged me or sent me letters, handwritten letters that say woohoo in them. It's unreal.
So
Whatever.
is that become
Fine.
your trail name now?
No, I hope not. Oh my gosh, please don't put that in the universe.
Take it back.
I guess it could be. You don't really get to choose your trail name, right?
Not so much.
Yeah, so I've never been given a trail name before. Mostly because I solo hike and mostly because I hike in strange seasons when nobody else is usually out. And our trail culture over here, I don't even know if people know to give trail names in Minnesota. Our trail culture is not like it is about you guys.
Yeah. Trail names are everything.
I know. Well, trust me, I wish I had one. I'll get one day.
Yes.
Someday. I'm sure I'll finally do a hike that has many people on it.
At some time of year that has a few at least.
Yeah.
But you were getting through the social media, through Emily on Trail, you had people that started following you and they started leaving things for you on trail.
Yes.
You know, whether that was water or treats or that kind of thing.
Yes. And socks.
And socks. Gotta love the socks.
Yes. 100%. There was one night I counted all the socks I had in my clothes bag, and I had 7 pairs of socks with me. 7. That's 4 more than I usually would have.
And that was just because people were concerned about your toes.
I guess so. They leave me socks and hand warmers, which is totally fine because they were good pairs, like Smartwools. Smartwools, Fits, they were great. I'm like, this is like $100 worth of socks here. This is awesome.
Where was the first time that happened? Not necessarily just the socks, but that you came across a trailhead or whatever, and there's like something sitting there for you specifically.
The first one I remember is at Lapham's Peak. What town is that in? Delafield, down by Delafield in the south. Oh, that's not true. Well, that was the first time that was somebody that I didn't ever meet. I met somebody on the trail in the Kettles, and this is where things got, because this is what happened. People were getting ready for this crazy trail race through the Kettles, really hilly trail race. And this woman stopped. I cannot remember her name to save my life. And she's like, how's it going? I'm like, good. I'm like, I'm through hiking the Ice Age Trail. She says, oh, I know. And I was like, uh-huh. She had started following my Instagram. And she's like, do you need anything? And she finished her run and dropped me off water, like 2 trailheads up. And it was awesome. Because as much as it's like being on the ocean, you know, there's water everywhere, but none of it's drinkable. So, you know, snow is just like, you want to drink it, you want to eat it so bad, but you got to boil it.
Yeah.
You know? So that was awesome. Yeah, but at Lapham Peak, somebody left me like socks and treats for Diggins and snacks for me and all of this stuff. Yeah, and like lots of letters about people's lives. I got lots of letters about people. Yeah.
That they were just leaving for you on the trail, not necessarily just, I can only imagine how many DMs you got through social media.
Yes, also that.
But
yeah, no, like letters, yes, so they'd leave me trail magic, and then they would like tell me like a page or two, like handwritten, about like how the trail, like how this story impacted their life.
Nice.
Which was nuts. It's crazy.
Did it feel a little bit like you were carrying people's hopes and dreams with you?
Towards the end a little bit. Yeah, well, because another thing is like a lot of people ask, like, did you ever have a moment where you thought to give up or quit? And my answer is always no. Like, because in the beginning, like I was so excited in the beginning, so there was no, you know, you had that like brand new eyes for a brand new trail, and nothing can you're unstoppable.
Yeah.
And then towards the middle, more people started, coming on to this trip, virtually. I was like, cool. But then like elementary schools started reaching out to me. So I stopped at 2 elementary schools, and like towards the end of it, we were just having the crummiest day, post holing all day long. And I was so tired. And I was like, Diggins, don't let me stop hiking. We have to make it to the little kids at the elementary school. We gotta be there for the kids. just like footstep to footstep. And it was probably way more dramatic in my head than it actually was in real life, because Diggins was like, whatever, man, we're just hiking. But the snow was deep. So yeah, it definitely helped me push through things, knowing that people were, I don't know, receiving hope and joy and all other good things from this trip too.
Did you make it there for the kids at the?
Sure did. We hiked stinking hard to get there too. Absolutely.
And were they excited to see you?
Oh my gosh, it was nuts. These teachers, I know they already don't get enough clout, but like these teachers were awesome. They had them like set up in their little pods. It was like 200 kids in these like little pods. And I would just go by and like wave to them and talk to them real quick and then move on to the next pod. It was the coolest thing ever. And then they had like some outdoor classroom where I like I didn't stock them. There's an outdoor classroom where I like talked to the fourth graders for a little bit, and they asked me a bunch of questions. I'm like, this is so cool. How cool would that be? Like fourth grade's pretty, you can usually remember fourth grade like tidbits of fourth grade, right? Like I definitely remember my fourth grade teacher. And like how cool would that be to have like some backpacker come through and like chat with you? That'd be cool, man.
You could have, with that talk, you could have set somebody on a path that they would not have necessarily contemplated before, but they saw you doing it.
Oh yeah, I hope so. Because what are you, like fourth grade, 10 years old?
Yeah, 9, 10.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I hope so. That'd be cool.
Was that the same middle school? No, this was elementary. So was there another middle school that also, maybe you didn't talk to them directly, but they had left some stuff for you or something? Because you were saying about one of the middle schoolers gave you some tough love.
That was in Lodi. Yeah. What did they? Yeah, this little kid's like written on a construction paper. They're like, you have to finish this hike yourself because nobody's gonna hike it for you. Something like that. I was like, all right, little kid. I'm like, oh, all right, okay, I see you.
I hear you. We're going.
Yeah, I'm cruising, I guess, because nobody else is gonna do it for me, I guess.
Yep. Now, when you started, you had a sled with you.
I did. Yeah. Which, you know, I'm glad I brought it, you know, because I'm glad I brought it, and I'm glad I set up the system that I did for how I did my box drops, right? Because that gave me a chance to really figure out my gear without having to figure out shipping stuff home, right?
So what did you do, or how did you do that?
Which part?
You said the box drops and then the set. Yeah.
Yeah. So before I even left, I just threw up a Facebook post like, hey, anybody want to help me out with this trip? Blah, blah, blah. It takes you driving across Wisconsin, potentially many, many hours. And I chose 9 people to do that. And so in each box, I'd have like new socks, new underwear, new food for me, food for Diggins. And then some of the boxes I would put like fuel canisters and stuff like that. So it'd be, I knew what I was going to get. And then that means I could also send home anything I didn't need, but wanted to keep, at home here. And that was super awesome. So they would meet me, usually at a place that I was staying. I tried to set it up so people could meet me at, like, I would contact people before I left in Wisconsin to see if I could stay on their property. So people could meet me there and do the exchange. It was super nice. It was luxurious, actually, come to think of it. Because I've read stories of people like on the PCT and they've tried to ship something to the post office, and like it doesn't get there on time, or like it got there and they did something else with it, or like there's something goofy. And like with COVID especially, our mail system here was so goofy for a long while. And I was like, if something is going to happen again and like the mail gets cut again, like I don't want to risk that. Anyway, so I did have a sled in the beginning, and it was awesome. It was awesome on the flats. I had a little convertible bottom, so I had wheels on the bottom I could flip up in the snow so they could be a sled. Look, I thought about this before I left because I knew there was a bunch of road walking. And in that, I had like my food, I had my heavy coat, I had my snowshoes, I had my fuel canister, I had my tent. So like my backpack was super light at that time, and it was awesome. But it just became too hilly, and it just didn't become worth it anymore. And I'm glad I ditched it. But if somebody's taking a winter, if somebody's taking like a winter trip and they're skiing, or it's flat-ish, and there's a few hills or whatever, totally bring a pulk, man, because you can bring so much more gear. It's a lot easier for a sled to be on top of the snow.
Yeah.
Than, and they're easy to build. You don't have to buy one. You just need
build yours.
Yeah, I built mine. You just need a kid sled, some PVC, some P cord, and some bungee cords, and some carabiners to clip it to your backpack. And there's tons of how-tos online. The most expensive part is probably the kid sled. Depending on how expensive of a kid sled you're going to buy.
How styling do you need to go?
That's right. And there's varying types of sleds and such, but yeah, I would recommend bringing it in the wintertime.
But then all of that stuff had to go onto your back.
Sure did. It sure did. It sure did. So thankfully the person that the person that witnessed me doing that transfer of all the stuff from the pulp to the sled was my former boss. And so she's seen me through, and we worked hand in hand together. It was she and myself who worked together as a crew. She's a climbing arborist. And so she was just sitting there watching me contemplate how heavy my pack was going to be. And I put it on, and I was like, oh my God. She's like, how does it feel? And just in her chipper manner, I was like, this is so heavy. She's like, you'll be fine. Your body will adjust. And I was like, God, Louise. It's a very Louise thing to say.
I believe you said somewhere that it ended up being about 60 pounds.
60, 65, yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like you're getting it from the top because it's pulling, you've got the weight and it's pulling you down. And then you've got to get through the snow, which luckily, Diggins was kind of breaking trail for you. But then you've got the struggle from the bottom as well. It's like.
Yes. Well, yeah. Well, especially like with post-holing through crusty snow, right? So like if it's fluffy snow, you can kind of like kick your way through it, and it's not too big of a deal, and you're breaking through to the same level like every time. But with the snow that has like a double crust on it, right? You just never know when your foot's going to be done sinking. And when you weigh so much, so like I weigh 180 pounds plus 60 pounds, that's not really a light situation. And Diggins like could walk on top of that snow. So she wasn't breaking it, because she, by that time she was definitely 40 pounds because she was a skinny kid at that time. So here she was just trotting along on top of the snow, and I'm just like, like the whole time. And I'm just like, get me out of here. Get me out of here.
How well marked is the Ice Age Trail?
Oh,
the memories. The memories are flooding back.
Well, because here's the thing. Well, so all the road walking is unmarked. So it's the road walks are suggested routes. So they're not marked yet. So you have 500 miles of unmarked trail. And then for each of the segments, different counties have different chapters. So it's not that it's not well blazed, because it's decently well blazed, especially once you kind of get the look for, what to look for. But sometimes each county has different blazes, or like blazes differently. How do I explain it? Sometimes they would just use like a yellow stripe on the tree. Sometimes they would use the snowmobiling diamonds, or like the ski diamonds, and they'd be yellow. Sometimes those ski diamonds were so old, they were just silver again. So you would never know what you're looking for. Sometimes they would use the mammoth. The mammoth is like their mascot, right? Sometimes there'd be a mammoth blaze. Sometimes they would just paint arrows on the trees, like with roadside paint. Like it was kind of crazy. So it was just that it would change throughout. You kind of just had to know what to look for and hope for the best.
Did you kind of develop an instinct out there of
you
were?
Oh yeah, I could definitely see like a blaze from like a half mile away. I'd be like, oh yeah, it's up there, no problem.
Did you ever get lost?
Yes. once for far too long, like for way too long. Because what was also happening at the time is that the logging markers were also yellow. So I ended up in this weird area where like there was a yellow blaze off to the side and it looked like someone had walked through, but the trail actually continued to the right. And then all of a sudden I was in this sea of yellow blazes and I was like, oh my gosh, which way do I go? And then it like clicked. I'm like, I'm in a logged area and these are the blazes that were left up.
But then you had to backtrack, find where you had
through some deep snow, like lower quad high deep snow. So I was a little embarrassed.
Did it make you be more careful, more diligent next time?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess like it definitely made me more aware of like, these are logging blazes, these are trail blazes. But really, I'm telling you, it really differs from county to county. So it very well could have been a blaze.
Mm-hmm.
But I should have known when I saw a sea of yellow blazes, I should have turned around right away. That was my mistake.
That was where Diggins followed the wrong trail.
That's where Diggins listened to me. So she was very good at knowing where the trail was. And then I'd be like, oh no, it's this way. And then she'd be like, okay, whatever. And then like begrudgingly go the way I wanted her to go. And then I'd be like, never mind, you're always right. You're every time, you're so right. And we would turn back around. A lot of that happened with like the depth of snow, because what she would be able to sense, I don't know how she did this. She had like a 10th sense, man, I tell you, because she would be able to sense like where the snow was more packed down, even though it looked the same across the top. And then she would go one way, like, I think it's this way. And then I'd fall through 1.5 feet of snow and she'd just like be walking on air. So I tell you, that dog.
Did she ever, I mean, I'm sure that because she's not human, but I could imagine in her head, there was more than one time where she was just like looking at you going, come on.
Yes. We'd be walking and then she'd like turn her head and be like, and then like turn and like just, yeah, she like gave me this look of like, why? Just why? Like, because I'm a silly human, Diggins, that's why. All right. I would spend a lot of our days just to pass the time overly trying to over-explain humanity to Diggins and why people are the way they are versus why don't we go with our instincts like she does?
Mm-hmm.
And why do we make decisions? I would just try to over-explain it to her as much as I could. We got very philosophical on the trail.
There was a lot of time.
There was so much time.
Did you hike with anybody at any point along the way? Or was it pretty much just exclusively the two of you?
Yeah, I mean, people would catch up with us. The longest somebody hiked with us, there was one woman, Tara, and she decided to camp out with us one night. And then hiked. I think she hiked like 16 miles, but it was pretty much all road walking.
Okay.
Yeah. And then like here and there, people would pick up a mile just to like chit chat and whatever. And road miles, people would pick up a few more with us on, but most of the time it's just alone.
I have this, speaking of Wilson, I have this image in my head of Forrest Gump as he's running across the country and people are running with him a little bit or standing on the side of the road, yelling for him.
You are the third person to bring up that image. Yeah. I try to be as respectful because there was definitely a line. And this is, I know that not all my hikes will be so well attended, let's say, maybe. Mm-hmm. And that came across my mind of like, these people are so excited for this thing to happen. And I want to do my hike and I need to finish it, right? It's like, I need to get home, but I don't want to stifle what they're experiencing also. Because I can experience what I'm experiencing alone in my own head and in my own world, but I don't want to stifle what they want to be a part of too, you know? So when people would come and visit, I would happily greet them, you know?
I saw, like, as you were posting, as you were getting close to the end, you posted, I'm going to call it boundaries, but some rules of engagement,
Yes.
which seem to be a lot about taking care of Diggins as much as anything else.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. I don't know. Do you have a question in there also?
well, I guess my question was just if you can kind of clarify that for the people who are listening,
For sure.
because it made a lot of sense when I was reading them, but
Yes. I think I started out that post with, I know rules. I know rules are hard to like adhere by when you're so excited, but please, follow them. So one of the things that I experienced on the trail is that I didn't use Strava and I didn't use any other tracking app. So Strava, lots of trail runners, lots of skiers use Strava, right? It's an excellent app, but I just didn't feel like I wanted people to know where I was all the time for various reasons that don't need to be discussed here. I think they're pretty common sensical.
Yeah.
So people would message my family and ask them if they knew where my location was while I was on the trail. And I think that was a boundary that was crossed many times. And I didn't know how to articulate that while I was on the trail. So I never made a post about that. And I would just tell my family, just don't respond, don't engage with people because they shouldn't be messaging you. And I knew that when I got closer to the end and when I finished, that people would be so excited and they would want to bring their dogs so I could meet their dogs. They would want their dogs to meet Diggins. They would want me to meet, their entire family. And the parking lot where I finished was very small. It could hold maybe about 10, 12 cars. So, please don't fight each other there. Like, don't yell at people, because when people get so excited about an event, all of a sudden their common sense goes out the window. And here's the reason why I know that is because I work at a tourist trap, 100%. Glen Sheen, when people come to Glen Sheen, it's remarkable. And I know that people wouldn't necessarily do the things they do there. They touch so many things they're not supposed to touch. They pick flowers they're not supposed to pick. And I know in their mind, they know they're not supposed to do that, but they left all of that at the car, right?
Yeah.
So understanding humanity and humans in that way, I was like, we're just going to create some boundaries. And I feel like you all love me enough to listen to those boundaries. And it went swimmingly. Nobody else brought their dog that I saw. People were very kind to my family. They were very kind to each other, as far as I know. And it went off nearly without a hitch.
So it was a good thing to put that out.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to know.
Everybody go.
Oh, I don't want to know any other way. And it's just good, right? It's so funny that like, as we become adults, right? People just think that we don't need to be told rules anymore, or like we don't need to be told boundaries anymore. Like we forget that we as adults need boundaries still.
Yeah.
And we don't really own these spaces. These spaces again are for everybody. And so it's just nice to have boundaries and give people boundaries and have something to point to, right? To be like, these are the things that I said and you're not following them. So it's easier to tell a park ranger than if an incident is happening, be like, they know better than this. Park ranger, will you please remove this person? Because adults still need boundaries and rules.
Yeah.
And also get carried away.
It needs to be clear.
Very clear. Yeah, just like it does for kids. Look, you've seen like a kid at Legoland. Oh, I don't know if you guys have Legoland where you live.
Yeah.
Like you've seen
Disneyland.
Yeah, any crazy place. We're experiencing joy and excitement. We all forget common sense.
Yeah, totally true.
Which is totally fine. Mm-hmm. But not always. Yeah.
You had just spent 68 days essentially out on a trail.
Yeah.
Has that really hit you yet?
Oh yes. As soon as I got home. My first week back was very hard. Very, very hard. Like, because my body wasn't moving every day anymore. Mm-hmm. And now my muscles are just tight. It's like sitting at work all day. I'm taking a pro development class for work. So I'm sitting at a computer all day. Every time I stand up, I'm like, a little tight here in the knees. But like just mentally, I could feel that a roof was over my head I don't know how to describe that. Like I could feel that I wasn't out in the sun as much as I was. And that was really hard. And there's a lot of people that exist in the world. And I forgot that. And to be honest, like I still miss Diggins quite a bit, you know, and that was really hard. Like I have a great partner, I have a great dog myself, but there's like a weird bond between me and Diggins for the rest of my life that will never be replaced by anything else. And that sucked hard. I have called Zulu is my dog. I have called him Diggins so many times since I've been back home. So many times. It's shameful to say the least.
Doesn't help that they're both black.
Yes. Oh yes. Yeah. So now things are a little bit better. I've been, you know, I took little short hikes and stuff. I was really resentful towards my truck when I got home. Like I didn't want to drive it at all. It was a weird relationship thing between me and my truck. I like didn't want to get in it. I just wanted to walk everywhere. And I'm over that now because I drive to work. But for some reason, this trip gave me like a different perspective on driving and everything. I don't know. So many weird things happened in the brain on this trip. A lot of time alone.
A lot of time alone, a lot of time to think.
Yeah. But yeah, all good, mostly all good things, I'd say.
With all of that time, I mean, because a lot of times when I'm talking to people who have done the trail, you know, they've done the 3 main trails, or, you know, there are people around.
Yes.
And so a lot of their experience is colored by the people that they hiked with. You know, for your hike, yes, it's colored by the people that you met along the way, but it was very much about you and Diggins out there.
Yes.
How did that color your hike? I mean, I'm not even sure if I'm asking the question the right way, but being that long in your head, that many days long in your head, even if you were talking with Diggins a lot of the time, how did that impact where you came to at the end, by the end of the hike?
Oh yeah. I'm hearing what you're saying. So I think well, I think several things happened, because even though I saw a lot of people, you know, loneliness kind of manifests in different ways from different situations, right? And I think there's like a form of loneliness where you are seeing people every day, but you don't see them. They're only there for 5 minutes and then they're gone, and then you're probably to never see them again. So that's kind of like what I experienced through the trip. And then you go to bed with just yourself every night, with nobody around, and no social media, because I didn't really have my phone on much. So to even have like virtual people to see. And then I think that every hiker has this opportunity to contend with themselves on the trail, but you have to choose it, right? You can distract yourself with other thoughts if you so choose, right? But I chose not to, and I really wanted to take the time on the trail to walk through like sticky points in my life where like I needed to insert more like forgiveness and insert more like grace and like forgive myself as like, you know, being a younger human, you know, like it's a whole long story of like just, you know, how I've become who I am. And it wasn't pretty the whole way through, you know? And so coming to those points and like allowing those emotions to come through and being angry on the trail and being sad and like talking through those moments, and yeah, getting to that point, coming face to face with like how I've become the way I've become. And I think it's really good, because then what happens after that is I get to know myself even more, right? Not that I don't think people know who they are, but I think there's a lot of things you don't know about yourself until you're alone. And you can either find yourself extremely annoying, or you can find yourself cool, or you can find yourself whatever. And now there's like that part of me that's just a little bit less fractaled, I guess, like a little bit more whole, you know what I mean? And then when I encounter other people in the real world, when I hear their stories, which I love, it gives me an opportunity to like see them with more wholesome eyes, I guess, because I kind of know where I'm coming from. I'm a little bit more centered on who I am without the influence of the outside world, you know?
Yeah.
So, because I spent so many days without like scrolling, and anytime I'd see somebody, kind of around the inauguration time and kind of all of that crazy stuff that was happening, anytime I'd see somebody, they'd be like, "Have you heard what happened in the news?" And we love to, tell each other we love to inflate the news as much as we can, right? And we always have, since we communicate, we're human beings, and we love to tell the story. But I'd respond with like, "I have no idea what you're talking about because my phone is off," So it was nice to kind of come back to center of who I was or who I am, kind of without the pressure and presence of the outside world. Yeah.
Did you come to a more holistic understanding, I guess, at the end of the trail?
Yeah. And then just like being able to see, and I've been pretty good in my life to kind of see people and not quickly judge them right off the go. But it's given me even more like tendencies leaning towards like having grace for folks who are so different than I am. Because there's a lot of people in Wisconsin who are very different than I am, especially along the trail. And kind of giving them that, lending them that. Yeah.
That grace, as you say.
Yeah.
There is going to be a documentary done on this trail, right? Or on your hike, right?
Yes, there is. Yes.
Do we know when it's coming out?
Breaking Trail. I have homework to do, but I need to get Jesse a few things. He wants access to my daily videos, for that.
Sure.
So that's what I'm working on after this. But I don't know when. Hopefully sometime this spring, maybe. That'd be really cool. I'm excited to see it. He has some really cool shots from it. And it was really fun. I almost said no to it. So I was like, I don't know, man, that's kind of weird, I guess. And that was before I understood the impact, I think, of this trip.
When did it get set up? Sorry. And I should say that it's going to be called Breaking Trail.
It is going to be called Breaking Trail. Yes. So let's see. I was in Rushholt when so I'm trying to think of where I am on the map. That was after the bifurcation, I think. So I was a little under halfway.
Okay.
Right? I think. So he caught the end of the second half of the trip. And he found me on Instagram, he and his wife. And they asked and kind of walked me through what they think it was going to look like, or thought it was going to look like, and told me a little bit more about themselves. And I was like, all right, here we go. I guess so. We're going to do this. Right? Like, think about things you like to do, right? And what if somebody like just asked you to like make a documentary on your life? I laugh about it because like it's just so funny to me. Because in my mind, right, I'm still just me, right? Like I'm just the same person that like just bopping along, gardening every day, then hiking and a little bit of whatever. And it's just so funny that people would want to watch a documentary on me walking through the woods, So I'm excited, and hopefully it'll become less weird once it's out. Maybe I'll just get over it.
Well, you said you had started this by saying that you initially were going to say no, or that was your first inclination was to say no.
Right, because when it was proposed to me, I was like, I don't want to have a film crew follow me around day and night. Like, that sounds terrible. And he didn't. He was super awesome about it. We met up a handful of times only. Just because it's just going to be it's not going to be like a series documentary. And he was super kind and super, gracious about it. And I was like, great. I just didn't want anything to like impede on my solo hike. because like when you see like reality TV shows about like people in the wilderness, and you're like, dude, there's a camera person right there. You're
How alone are you really?
right, like you're probably not gonna die because they can't have that liability.
Yeah.
Not that like I'm seeking adventure to where I'm gonna die, but you know what I mean.
Mhm.
Yeah. More like
The camera makes it look much scarier than it potentially was in that moment. And then you add some sound and some music and
yeah, absolutely.
you got the whole thing.
Yeah. So I'm excited.
I'm excited to see it when it comes out.
Me too. I think it's gonna be weird to watch myself on a screen. And all my family members.
Well, I wonder how much, because I have a feeling, 69 days is a long enough time to sort of remember but forget. Like you say, the rose-colored glasses and so forth, like everything that's happened over the last 2 months, essentially. And having him put it together will remind you of things that you've forgotten, moments that were a lot harder than you remember them to be potentially.
Yes. Yeah, and so that's also where my idea for doing the daily morning videos came from, right? Because I became a terrible journal. I used to be such a good journaler. When I was in college, I could journal for like hours. On this trail, I would write like 4 lines, and I was like, good enough. This was the weather today. This is how far we hiked. I'm tired and hungry. Like just toss it, in the bag. So I'm glad I did all those morning videos because I think that'll help me remember a lot too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Oh, I'm sure it will. I mean, I'm sure that looking back on those videos will almost like flash it into your mind.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. Like that exact moment, you probably almost even smell and feel like what that day was.
Yeah. Yep. I have a feeling I'm gonna cry during most of it when I watch it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you tell if somebody else came to you and said, okay, I want to do this. I want to do what you did, the Ice Age Trail in the winter. What would you tell them to be careful of, or what would you tell them that they should do to make sure that they do it successfully?
Yeah. I would be so excited if somebody else picked this up in the winter. The biggest thing I would tell people is, so if they're from the Midwest, I would have a lot less, or if they're like into mountaineering, or if they're like into, if they've experienced our weather here, I would, be a little bit more comfortable being like, oh yeah, for sure. Because you've experienced the weather here. Because man, the Midwest weather is even different than mountain weather. It's so different. Yeah, it's just different. I would
versus
say
the weather.
Well, because I would say have a plan. Have a plan. Have a couple experiences. Okay, in this scenario, because there's so many different types of backpackers out there. In this scenario, this person has like gone winter camping or like has slept outside at least one night in the winter. In my mind, so this is not a green person that's never slept outside in the winter before. So I would tell them, have a plan. Have an itinerary. And I say that because going through those miles, like in the book, they have a lot of like atlases and maps and stuff like that. But like going through all 1,200 miles multiple times to get my itinerary down, got my brain ready for how long it was going to take me to finish. That makes sense. So I had to visualize it over and over and over again as I changed my itinerary and whatnot. So do that, have a plan, and then get ready to be extremely flexible with that plan. I had a weird injury my first week, so like my entire itinerary got kicked off after my first week. Everything was goofy after that. So be ready to be flexible. Be ready for the mental game, because you're probably going to be fine in all other aspects because you've bought all the gear you need to buy. You watched YouTube videos, you whatever, but now it's going to be you and yourself out there. And there's no gear you can buy for that. You have to do that work. You know what I mean? So yeah, having experienced the weather, have a plan, the mental game. Those are probably the 3 top ones. Because everything else you can pretty much find on YouTube. You know, you can find in forums and stuff like that. If you were wanting to get out into like winter adventuring and whatever, I'm hoping that these folks have like, you know, at least bought a book on winter camping or like alpinists, like have read alpinist books or something like that. You know, I definitely have a book called Winter Camping. It's from like 1980. I love it's so fun to read. It's still very valuable, but the gear just doesn't really make sense anymore.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't be afraid to borrow his stuff. If you think this is going to be a one-time thing, if you think it's going to be a one-off, don't be afraid to borrow stuff that people around you have. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
I think that's a huge one.
Don't let your ego become the monster that destroys you on the trip. Yeah.
Which, if I'm remembering your quote relating to that first week and your knees and that kind of stuff, maybe ego would be going a little too far, but it was a challenge for you to change up what your plan had been versus what your body was actually telling you it needed.
Oh yeah. And that got me kicked to the side of the road with my thumb out. Like my tolerance for pain is pretty high. And I have never felt something like that in my knees before. And I finally got to a point where I just called Diggins back and I was like, we're just going to sit at this corner of this county road. I put my hood up. I leaned against my backpack and I had to pull at that time. So I like put my leg up on the sled and I had Diggins crawl between my legs and snuggle up. I put my hood up and I just sat there. And I was like devastated because it was day 6, right? And I wasn't listening to my body at all. And I was on this weird county road. And like thankfully this family like took pity on me and came back around and picked me up. But there weren't very many cars on that county road at all. Yeah, it's just not worth it, right? Because like, what are you gonna tell you're gonna tell people, oh, I didn't finish this trail because I don't know, I became my own, worst enemy and thought I was gonna be a badass and like push through everything. Silly. That's just like when I look back, reflecting, when I say like I wish I would have stayed outside more. Mm-hmm. Like, sure, I wish I would have stayed outside more, but I also love having 10 fingers and 10 toes.
Those are very helpful.
Like I love having healthy lungs. I love that I didn't have to bring back a damaged dog. So there's definitely those boundaries with yourself, and you will learn that. And that's the other thing, is when people are like, weren't you cold outside? Like, yes, I was cold outside. Like, nature is the great equalizer, 100%. So you got to listen to what, you got to communicate with what is happening with you out there, and listen. If you don't listen, she'll tell you something different. Like Mother Nature always wins. Every time.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So going in kind of just with that type of mindset, but then just be excited for it. Why are you doing it? Why are you hiking? Like, are you hiking because you just really love it? Fantastic. Go for it, man.
Being 6 days in and having your knees feeling like that. I mean, at that point you still had the sled with you, so you didn't even have the 60 pounds on your back yet. Mm-mm. Did that give you concern?
Well, I couldn't figure out why it was happening. And I'm pretty sure it turned out to be the road walking and having Diggins pull me on the road walks, because there's a lot of road walks in the beginning. And instead of, with your normal stepping, right? Or if you're running for like Canicross, well, maybe not. So with your normal stepping with nothing pulling you, you step like, like heel to toe, or like, midfoot to, like, it's an easy rolling situation. But when something is pulling you, like having a dog pull you ahead of you, you're stopping her movement. the whole way through. So my quads were working extra hard. It was like I was going downhill all the time, even as though I was on flat lands. And so my quads were just pulling on my patellar tendons just too much. And, you know, I had done a bunch of road walks up here, but not with Diggins because she was back home. So it was a new muscle. It was like a new muscle build for my body. Yeah.
Right. You made mention that, you know, your goal for this hike was 70 days. And that part of the benefit to having Diggins with you, she is a sled dog. She does pull, as that pulling, because she would be hooked to you, would to some extent keep you on track.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm a pretty fast hiker, but sometimes like if you're daydreaming, you can really slow down.
Yeah.
Honestly. And having her in front was like a good reminder, like we had just had to keep going. Yeah.
Did there ever get a time out there where you were literally thinking about getting off trail?
No, I don't think so. Not that I remember. I would like be exhausted and like just fall to my knees in the snow and then just like hug Diggins for a little while and just like take several deep breaths and like just try to a lot of self-talk had to happen, and a lot of good self-talk had to happen. So just like hugging Diggins and being like, you got this, like you're strong, you're capable, also you don't have a choice, if you stay here you're gonna freeze. Like, you know, talking myself up and then telling myself reality. Like we are on a hillside, we can't sleep here. You know, and then getting back up and pushing again. Yeah.
Speaking of keeping going, I think you were saying that you were trying to pack yourself about 4,000 calories a day out there.
Yeah.
Now, was I wrong in assuming, because I saw you created little baggies for it, and was each baggie basically the 4,000 calories?
Oh, no way.
Okay.
No, that's just like what I picked at through the day pretty much.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And actually what ended up happening, because so many people left me trail magic that I lost weight on the trail, but that's going to happen. But so many people left me stuff that I could start to rely on kind of what they left me, which was really awesome.
Nice.
Remarkably so, a lot of trail magic happened. A lot. Like a lot. I don't want to say too much, but it was a lot. Yep.
Everybody wanted to be a part of it.
Yes, they did.
How many 0 days did you take out there?
It took 3. Here's another recommendation to this future person that's going to do this trip.
Dear future hiker.
Dear future winter through hiker of the Ice Age Trail, allot yourself more 0 days. I was dumb. I'm going to call out my past self and say, past Emily was stupid. I had 1 0 day planned.
Really?
Look,
Why? Just because you were...
I'm not proud. I don't know what I was thinking. I have no idea what I was thinking. I have no clue.
Was there a reason that you had to be done in exactly 70 days, or?
Well, I did just so I could get back to work. But I'm speechless. I don't know what I was thinking. Because here's the thing. So Mike Summers did it before me, and he finished it in 59 days. And he took 5 or 6 0 days. He's from out west. And like, I'm sure he knew, long distance hiking culture much better than I did. And like, I don't know why I didn't look at his schedule and be like, yeah, I should also take 5 0 days, because he seems like a smart man. Nope. 1.
And it wasn't even like you were trying to make it faster than him or faster than somebody else.
There's literally no explanation.
Because you were the first woman.
I wasn't even thinking about that. I don't know what I was thinking. I have no idea why I thought I wouldn't need more rest. I don't know, man. Probably because I'm terrible at resting. So we just got, my partner's just right over here and confirmed that.
Laughing?
And we just came back from a little weekend, and like Flo was like enjoying the fire and like made dinner and just like enjoying things. I'm just like buzzing around the campsite, like just doing stuff literally for no reason, just to have something to do the whole time. And Flo was like, "Is this why you like backpacking? Because there's always something to do." And I said, "Yep, I think so. I'm just terrible at resting." Whatever. I know. Like I said, again, and you know what though? But like the natural world will always win out every time. So there's
If you don't want to, she will make you.
yes. Oh yeah. Yes. And all of our ancestors knew that. That's the thing. Here's the thing that's been, I think, lost from all of our ancestors, no matter where you come from, because there was a point in time where your ancestors, my ancestors, were all stuck outside, right? They knew the ways of Mother Nature. They knew the ebbs and flows and how unpredictable she could be. Somehow, when we became in this technologically savvy world, we have forgotten and we think we're so cool and that we can beat her out somehow. You know, it's not the case. Not the case. You fling yourself back out into the middle of the wilderness, and she's like, "Oh, welcome back.
Let's have some fun.
Let's have a good time together, huh?" Like all of your ancestors are just standing around you, like you have no idea what you've just done. You know.
And I could just picture my ancestors standing, because my ancestors are Norwegian.
Oh yes.
And I could just picture my ancestors going, "Oh, child, this is gonna be bad."
Right, absolutely. Oh yeah, all the Norse people, right? All the Norse people being like, "Come on."
You've got the genes. Come on, use them.
Right. Like, there's probably some cobwebs, but dig them out. We gave them to you. They're very faint, but they're there. Precisely.
What was your toughest, most challenging moment on trail?
Yeah. Post-holing. And it was just the mental part, because we've all post-holed and whatever. But it wasn't the post-holing that was difficult. It was that I ended up going like a half mile an hour for some of these moments. And as a thru hiker, your goal is really not to lollygag. I mean, I'm not trying to set, the FKT for this thing, clearly, but you don't want to just lollygag. And it's the middle of winter. You want to get to where you can put down your house. And those were the most miserable. And I had some back-to-back days of just like where I'd have long sections. The whole day wouldn't be post-holing, but it would just be long sections of having to post-hole. And I would like look at my watch and then see the time and then look at my map and see how little I had accomplished for the day. And I'd be in the middle of the woods and there'd be nobody around, right? Yeah. Again, lots of self-talk had to happen. Lots of like picking myself up and going forward. Yeah.
Did that come naturally? The self-talk?
There was
positive self-talk.
There was no room for any negative self-talk. Silly negative self-talk, yes, because we all have to be realistic with ourselves, right? But I didn't have any room in my mind for like telling myself that I was not going to make it on this trip. There was just no room for that. Yeah.
So what was your go-to self-talk?
What was I had like came up with a mantra of like, this may feel difficult, but it's not impossible. Lots of that, because it did feel difficult, but it's not impossible to walk through the snow with 65 pounds on your back in negative whatever weather. And this won't last forever. That was the other thing. This won't last forever.
Yeah.
And when it would come towards the end of our day, I would tell Diggins, but mostly telling myself, you're closer to your endpoint. This is the closest you've ever been to your endpoint this entire trip. It's the closest you've ever been, which is kind of patronizing yourself, but whatever, like you got to get through with the things. And just like you're strong, your body can do this. Like you can feel your muscles working. There's a lot of simple "you got this" talk, you know. And sometimes just sitting down and like taking a second really helped. I would just throw my pack down and start munching on some food, because that was the other thing. Is just like, man, eat a gosh darn Snickers. Like, sit down and eat a Snickers, man. Because that's one of the things. Like, when like not so awesome self-talk would come in, it's usually because I was hungry. And that's how I've always been. I was such a good kid growing up. Like, I was a good little kid. I would turn into a little terror as soon as I got hungry, though. And that's, I think also my partner could attest to that too, that I'm usually pretty good unless I'm hungry.
You're like the perfect Snickers commercial.
I am a walking Snickers commercial. 100%. Snickers, if you're listening.
We've got an opportunity for you right here.
I got you covered. A real life situation. Meet me on the Ice Age Trail.
There we go. We're going back just for this.
Just for a Snickers commercial. Yeah.
With you doing the positive self-talk, and with you, embracing what you needed at any given moment, has that affected or impacted how you walk in the world now? I mean, I know it's still fairly close, but.
Right. I think this goes back in my history a little bit more, but I think there was a point in time where I had to choose positive self-talk in my life, or else I wouldn't have made it. I think, we all go through these times, and look, I'm not great at it all the time. Look, I have a hired therapist and she's fantastic. So like, I definitely
therapy.
There's like definitely things I have to there's things I have to practice. We all have to practice.
Yeah.
Our self-talk. As again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, as we get older, we like don't like rules, right? We think that rules are for children. And just as we get older, we think that talking down to ourselves is okay as adults, but you would never let a kid do that. Like, if you heard a kid talking to themselves the way that we talk to ourselves, sometimes you'd be like, yo, buddy, like, what's going on? And so it's something I still definitely have to practice, but there was a turning point in my life where I had to practice it more and realize that that's how I had to go on moving forward. Yeah. And then walk the talk, walk the walk, talk,
Both.
whatever it is. Yeah.
Both, actually. Yeah.
So I went into the trip with a pretty healthy mindset. I had to use the skill that I've been practicing for a long time. A lot more on that trip than I do in my normal life, though. Yes.
This was the test to see if you've really got it.
Absolutely. All these years. All these years.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think, and a lot of people, and I'm sure because you've read their stories, took away from your walk a lot of things personally for themselves. But I would imagine that one of the things that some people took away, some little girls took away, was watching this strong, powerful woman go out and do this kind of crazy, kind of amazing thing by herself, and kind of look at that or watch that and be inspired by it.
Yeah, I hope so. And people have asked me, like, do you feel the impact that you've made? People have asked me that, and I think I don't think I quite understand the impact, right? Because look, like, social media, like, okay, you could say you have 12,000 followers, but like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Look, all people have to do is just hit a follow button. It's not that big of a deal. I think I will, although it is crazy that there's that many people following, but I think I will, I don't want to minimize that at all. I don't think I'll feel the true impact until some of these little kiddos are a little bit older and can make their own life decisions. So, so I was talking to 10-year-olds. So maybe in 10 years from now, maybe I'll get whatever form of a letter is at that time. And they'll be like, you came in my classroom and told me about these things, and I thought it was so cool, or, whatever. So I decided to fill in the blank here. I think that's when I'll really start to feel the impact. And that's okay. That's totally cool, man. Like fruits, just planting seeds is good enough for me.
Yeah. You're a gardener. You understand so much happens under the surface that you just are not aware of until.
Yes. The patience game is very large in the gardening world.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, that's what I hope anyway.
I would be surprised if it's not, or if it hasn't happened in somebody's head at least. They saw you doing that big thing, and had a little shift.
Yeah, I hope so. That'd be pretty cool.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that we should?
I don't know. We covered so many topics. I think you definitely asked the widest array of questions. I do want to point one thing out though.
Okay.
If you would lift up your left arm.
My left arm?
I can see your wrist.
Oh,
your wrist.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we had the same watch.
Oh, we might.
We sure do. Which is awesome because we are on. You're out west or east?
I'm in west. I'm in LA.
Yeah, you are thousands of miles from where I am.
Yep.
And I was like, that watch looks oddly familiar, and it's the same one that's on my wrist.
Yes.
So, well done.
This Timex is my go-to forever and ever.
Same. Absolutely. I've broken so many watches in my lifetime.
And I always come back.
Yes, me too. No, I think we've hit, most of the things. I just like really, I hope that like people, one of my hopes for after this trip, right, is I know more people have gotten outside because of this trip, more frequently, especially in winter for us over here. And I don't want that memory to fade for folks. I don't want this to be a New Year's resolution for folks. Like I hope that there's a somewhat of a legitimate spark that happened within them to at least look at the outside world differently and see the outside world differently. Like maybe even see like branding differently and like see like companies differently. Like my whole shtick is like you don't need the cool things. There's a few key elements you need to do a winter hike that like you should go with, not like sorry Walmart, but Walmart brands for.
Yeah.
But you don't need to be this rich, wealthy, affluent, or probably white person to get outside and do, whatever. Like you can be anybody. And that's I'm hoping that doesn't fade as time progresses for folks. I hope that that still sticks with them. But I also can't control the world's population.
Yeah. Well, I hope that people who followed you on this path, on this hike, on this trail, and people who are listening to this podcast and are inspired by what you did, I hope that as they get out there into the world, into nature, and do their thing and they document it, that, I mean, I'm sorry to wish this on you, but I hope that they tag you. I hope they let you know that you were something that pushed them out there to do this big, beautiful thing.
Yeah. And I would happily welcome that. That's when I talked to Charlie Barron's on his podcast, we talked so much about technology, and like I know that technology has become somewhat of a stumbling block for us, but it's such a good tool to connect the world together, and to get messages out there for the world. And so, yeah, I will happily probably like whatever they put out there.
So where should they take you? Where can they find you?
They can find me at Emily on Trail on Instagram.
Perfect.
I will be there.
Showing them your next crazy, beautiful adventure.
Yeah. I'm really excited for that one. Who knows what it's going to be? Even I don't know, but I'm sure it's going to be awesome.
Of course. How could it not be?
Yeah. Maybe with Diggins, maybe without Diggins. That's the real kicker, right?
Yeah, definitely. When you think of those 69 days on the Ice Age Trail, what is the impression? What is the feeling? What is the memory that comes up for you?
Oh, so much joy. Like, and not like like a sustained, let's see, hold tight. Hold on. So even though like I had to wrestle like with the snow and with the weather and whatever, like I really feel a deep contentment that's like paired with joy. Like it just feels right. And that's how I feel when I'm hiking. It just feels right. But since I was out there for so long, it just felt right for 69 days. You know, I felt like my place was just there. I knew what my purpose was, you know. I like that.
a bigger change, to find a better way. And if we fall, we'll get back